Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the session. So indeed, it's a packed agenda, so I'll try and keep it short. Sorry now. So my presentation today is focusing on LIVING-IN.EU, which Fernando mentioned, which is working with DT for Regions, the project. And LIVING-IN.EU is a movement of cities and regions and member states, as well as academic institutions and people from industry, to work on the digital transformation at local level, so from the bottom up. And why are we doing this? Well, the policy context is that cities and communities and local level are really at the heart of this twin digital and green transition. As we work towards climate neutrality by 2050, we see that digital and the digital decade targets will help us to do this if used correctly. And there are many ways in which uses of data and AI and digital technologies can help. The digital decade strategy sets ambitious targets for public services to be delivered online, for improvement of digital skills, improvement of digital infrastructures, and for businesses to go online. And none of this will be achieved if the local level is not fully involved in it. Part of the digital strategy is Europe's data strategy, and this also applies to local level as well, because without data, obviously, we can't use AI. Things like digital twins and data spaces all depend on having access to data. You'll see on the bottom left, there's a little logo, Interoperable Europe. This is just to flag the Commission will soon publish new legislation on interoperability governance for public services, the Interoperable Europe Act, and local and regional level should also be involved in this discussion to make sure that we have interoperability across the different levels of government, which is essential. And in the middle, you'll see the new European Bauhaus. And this is the heart of the European Green Deal. So the kind of cultural and design side, and bringing people along on the journey involving citizens, which is very important. So that's where we are in the policy context. So where do cities come in? Well, what should a smart community look like? This slide shows an illustration of the architecture of a city or local level that those working on the digital transformation should consider. In the middle, you'll see a local data platform which a city should deploy that should be based on open standards, and that's what the LIVING-IN.EU movement promotes. It's the use of open standards and technical specifications which allow data then to be shared more easily. The layer below, the red one, is about the data space for smart communities, which is part of the EU data strategy. So a project has just begun, funded by the Digital Europe programme, to support the creation of a data space. And this will help cities and communities and regions out there to structure their data correctly, to be able to share data, to be able to access data under certain rules. And then the top layer is where the data is used both by the public sector and private actors, using other technologies such as AI to deliver services, to involve citizens, etc. And I suppose the most advanced use of all of this is cities who are using digital twins, and we'll hear from some, and we'll be discussing this later. So in this slide, you see some EU projects that are funding work on digital twin type projects, and you'll see that there are a number of cities, including Helsinki, and Timo will be speaking about how digital twins are being used. And for example, the digital twin potential is huge in terms of planning towards climate neutrality as well. So in order to achieve this vision, which we have of having digital twins and an ecosystem of digital twins across the EU that are accessible for large and small cities, we're working on different components. So the platforms, the data platforms I mentioned, the data space, and a toolbox of digital twins, and these are being funded through the Digital Europe programme. So we are funding at the moment 5 different initiatives. The data space I mentioned, and we actually have another call open at the moment, which will test the data space once up and running. So we will be having an info day, and I'll share a link to that on the 18th of October. So this data space, the first step is to develop a blueprint of the data space and set up the rules for how it will operate. Then we will also be supporting cities and communities to deploy local data platforms. So depending on the cities or the region's level of maturity, they may need tailored assistance at a particular level. So this will include, for example, templates for procuring a data platform and other tools. And then lastly, for the more mature cities, we'll be funding a toolbox of components of local digital twins. And all of these will be based on open and interoperable standards, which a city then can use and reuse. And the idea is really that cities and regions can take solutions that have been developed elsewhere and more easily reapply them in their own context. And speaking about the new European Bauhaus, we have a coordination and support action that will bring together the digital and the new European Bauhaus community to work together to identify digital technologies that can support the objective of having more beautiful, sustainable and inclusive cities. And lastly, LIVING-IN.EU brings all of these together. So if you want to be involved in any of these discussions, I would encourage your city or region or community to join the LIVING-IN.EU movement. I won't go into too much detail about the data spaces other than to say that the data space for smart communities is one of several data spaces that are being established as part of the European data strategy. When it comes to the layer of the platforms, LIVING-IN.EU has a few solutions currently available. So we have the guidance document, the minimal interoperability mechanisms, which are a set of specifications and standards that can be used to support deployment of a data platform and the architecture of a smart city. So I encourage you to look at that. I'd also point you to Join Up, which is DG Digit's platform, the Interoperability Academy, the digital building blocks, and then we are looking ahead to the tools that I mentioned that we will be developing through the Digital Europe programme, which are mentioned on the slides. And now I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but I mentioned earlier that there will be a new piece of legislation, the Interoperable Europe Act, shortly. And this will give specific reference to the role of interoperability at local and regional level, where there are particular special challenges, crossing of all of the different sectors, be they mobility, energy, water, etc., within a city, and the interaction between the different levels of government. And of course, interoperability is not just something about technical interoperability and standards. There are other factors, legal interoperability and cultural interoperability and organizational interoperability, that are actually equally important, if not more important. And so I would encourage all of you who are not already part of the LIVING-IN.EU community to join. You'll see this set of logos at the bottom on about the organisations that are part of LIVING-IN.EU, which includes the European Network of Living Labs, and also ARCAIN, CEMR, Open and Agile Smart Cities, who are working on the technical side, and Eurocities, who are very active on a lot of the digital stuff as well, and of course the Committee of the Regions, who are hosting today's event. It's based on a political declaration, so to join, your mayor or leader should sign the declaration, which is based on a set of shared principles about working together based on open standards, involving citizens and cities leading the way at EU level. We work across a number of subgroups. One of these is education and capacity building, which is what we are talking about today. And then very quickly, I'll just give you some pointers about what is happening in particular about AI, which is a key area of the DT for Regions project. So the Commission is working with member states based on the coordinated plan on AI. And LIVING-IN.EU is supporting three different activities, three different activities. So one of these is procuring AI using a standard template. So this would make it a lot easier for a city or a region or a local authority to procure AI, because they can be confident that the procurement clauses will ensure that the AI service they procure is transparent, fair, etc. And Amsterdam have developed a set of clauses, and these clauses have now been adapted to fit with the yet incompleted AI Act. And we're looking for cities and regions who would like to test the clauses, and the LIVING-IN.EU community will be working with DG Grow to do this. So if you're a city or a region or a procurement professional or a technical person who's interested in AI, the links are here and please follow up. The Euro cities are working with Amsterdam and Helsinki on developing a shared technical specification for algorithm registers, which Amsterdam and Helsinki have already, maybe Timo will mention it, they've already developed basically a platform or a website where citizens can see how AI has been used and how it has affected a decision, how it has been used in decision making that has affected them, and they can check to make sure that that it's trustworthy and fair, and generally provide more reassurance to any citizens. And then the last one is the Fair AI MIM. So that's the minimal interoperability mechanisms that I mentioned earlier that are used by LIVING-IN.EU. And one of these is about Fair AI, and it will help cities to connect the algorithm registers with the contractual clauses. So it's a technical piece of technical work, and again, Amsterdam is involved, and I think Helsinki as well. So I would encourage you to get involved in any of these. If you're interested in AI, I have some links here to studies that have been done by DG Digit and by the JRC, and also just to make you aware, I see that there were sessions during this conference. European digital innovation hubs are being set up, and they will be available to help cities and regions and local authorities to develop their capacity for this type of digital technologies. There's also an AI testing and experimentation facility for smart communities that is being established, also funded through the Digital Europe programme. And of course, the data space, we'll be working on that over a year now. The work has begun. So watch this space. And lastly, the info day I mentioned earlier, which is about the data space and how to test it. The info day is taking place on the 18th of October, and anyone is welcome, whether you're a city, a local authority, or from academia or from industry. You're more than welcome to attend. So that's it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm available.